Hello friends, welcome back to Cosmopolitan Cornbread. So I just have some work to do out here outside, and I thought I would bring you out here and just kind of chat with you while I do things. I've already decided I'm going to call this video Close Calls and Miraculous Healing. I'm going to tell you about the first close call right here. So this guy right here, very pitiful looking thing. His name is Milk Dud, and he showed up here last year. Just kind of arrived one day. We thought he was a really old cat because looking at him, he's just pitiful. And when he arrived, he was incredibly sick. Just respiratory infections, blowing bloody snot, the whole 9 yards. He was a hot mess. Well, he wasn't going to go anywhere, and of course there's no animal shelters around here that would take a cat, especially one who was in his condition. And so we ended up taking him to the vet, getting him fixed up and all that stuff. And they gave him antibiotics. They ran tests on him to make sure he didn't have anything contagious or anything like that. You know, something that would be harmful to our other cats. Because we do have two other outdoor cats, Stumper and Nubs. You see one of them in the beginning of all of my videos. And, you know, we didn't want him giving them something that could endanger their lives. Well, he checked out. He did have a respiratory infection. They gave him antibiotics and all that stuff. And so we found ourselves with a third outdoor cat. However, he never really quite fully recovered from being sick. Now, when we got him, he was covered with some of the worst fleas I think I've ever seen on a cat, and I used to volunteer at the county animal shelter. I've seen some pretty poorly cats. They actually had to shave part of his fur off just to get the flea dirt off. It was that thick. It was really bad. We ended up taking him back in because the sneezing and stuff just would not go away. Well, it turns out he has allergies, and none of the allergy medication has really helped him a whole lot. So he sneezes all of the time, and he looks pitiful. But other than that, he's a good cat. He's pretty sweet. He loves the scratches and all of that. But our other two cats, Stumper and Nubs, the orange tabbies, the Manxes, tailless cats, we've had them since they were kittens, and we trained them as kittens to go up at night, which is, I know, the opposite of what most people do when they have farm cats, because rodents and pests are nocturnal for the most part, and you usually want your cats running around at night, but we trained them as kittens to go up at night, and we've just always done that. Well, when this guy showed up, we couldn't really put him with the other cats, and so we have a doghouse with, you know, food and water and bedding, and there's a fan, and there's heat in the winter and things like that, and that's where he has slept. Well, if you follow me on social media, you may have seen on Friday where I showed a picture of a little dog and said how I had an emergency vet situation and ended up coming home with two pets. Well, two animals, not two pets. Thursday night, before I get into the story, the second animal was a little Yorkie. Found it in the middle of the highway on a curvy mountain road. Could not leave it there. Took it to the vet, had them scan it, looking for a microchip. I was able to reunite it with its family. But the reason for the emergency trip to the vet was this guy. And this is the first close call that I'm sharing in this video. You see, Thursday evening, it was late. I was already in bed. I was sitting in bed reading. Mr. Smith was in the living room when all of a sudden there was this ruckus, and I heard him throw open the door. The dog started going crazy, and I jump up and I'm like, what in the world? And as I'm coming out of the bedroom, Mr. Smith's running back into the house barefoot in his pajamas, trying to throw some shoes on, and he said, "Coyotes got milk dud." Grabbed the gun, grabbed the flashlight, ran back out the door, and we're searching everywhere, and could not find him. And these coyotes, I didn't get a look at them, but Mr. Smith did. Now, we had coyotes in Alabama. They weren't very big. These were much bigger than the coyotes that we had in Alabama. So out here, right outside the greenhouse, right outside the house, we have this stone wall and a picnic table that is all built in there, and we have a water spigot over there. It's where there's a long stone flower bed and everything, and the two coyotes had Milk Dud cornered against the stone wall in between the water spigot and everything, and Mr. Smith ran out, grabbed a bucket that was there, and just slammed it into the back of one of the coyotes. That coyote took off running. Milk Dud ran over underneath the truck, and the coyote went off after him. And so that's when Mr. Smith ran in to grab his shoes and grabbed a gun to come running back out and, you know, try and save Milk Dud. And, you know, we came out here with the flashlights and we were searching everywhere and we weren't finding him. And we thought the other coyote had gotten him. And we were just about to give up when Mr. Smith spotted him down on the far side, kind of near the garden and over by the creek. And he was definitely shaken up. He was kind of in rough shape. There was just fur everywhere. But we scooped him up. We checked him over. We couldn't find really any sign where he was bleeding or anything, but he was definitely in shock. And so we brought him in here into my greenhouse and set up a blanket, gave him some food and water, and we've got a litter pan down here. And we just kind of locked him in here to keep him safe and let him rest. Well, the next morning he got up and he tried to stand up and he was just shaky, falling over. And so I called the vet as soon as they opened, took him in, and that's what the emergency vet appointment was for. He does have a couple of puncture wounds. Like I can see there's a puncture here on his leg. I won't touch it, baby. He had a puncture on his ear, a puncture on his leg. There was like a wound on his mouth. And he had lost a lot of fur and he was really, really shaky and weak. And so my concern was, of course, like broken bones, you know, internal bleeding or something like that. So took him to the vet. They did a full body x-ray and said miraculously there was nothing. There was no broken bones. There was no internal bleeding. They said he was probably in shock and probably really bruised. So they went ahead and gave him antibiotics, gave him painkillers, sent him home with painkillers, and he will recover. Although he is the laziest cat you've ever seen in your life. We're kind of inclined to think that he may have some ragdoll cat in him because of how much he sleeps. He's definitely not an active hunter like our other two cats. And this fur that he has is just the finest float up your nose fur you've ever seen. So we're just kind of leaving him be, letting him rest in here. He now does get locked up at night. We have the doghouse still out there for him if he wants to go in there, but he's being put up at night. He's actually being locked here in the greenhouse. There's a fan in here. It's very pleasant, even in the summertime, because all of the windows are open during the day. There's lots of airflow. And then at night, there's no sunlight, so it's not hot in here anymore. So we close up the windows, we lock the door, and we leave the fan going. And so he has a nice, peaceful, safe place to sleep at night. Today is the first day he actually ventured out of the greenhouse. He has not gone outside at all since Thursday night when that happened. But he did come outside today. He is eating a little bit. We give him some soft food. He is eating his treats, his favorite thing. So yeah, Mr. Milk Dud here had quite the close call. But thankfully, Mr. Smith was able to hear what was happening and run out here and intervene. Quick update on the pepper seedlings. So everything here was doing really good. I've got more pepper seedlings coming up than I thought I would. This is my 5 color Chinese peppers. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of those coming up, it looks like. This is the Buena Mulatas. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for sure. That one looks like it's trying, so that would be 7. So the lipstick peppers, it looks like I've got 3 of those. The jigsaws, these are the ones that have the purple variegated plants or the foliage. So we've got 2, 4, it looks like 5 of those, and you can see already how purple the leaves are. Here is the Tams cayenne peppers. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of those. Right here I only had a few jigsaws and I only had a few starfish, so I had a half row of each. It looks like I've got 2 of the Brazilian starfish peppers that came up. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I said Tams cayenne. These are not Tams cayenne. These are, I forget what variety these were, but they were cayenne peppers. Tams was the jalapenos. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of those. And then my bell peppers, these were the California Wonders. Really old seeds, which is why I put 2 in every one of these cells. Looks like I've got 1 coming up here, 1 there. Looks like I got 1 trying down in there. And I have 1 that looks pretty good here, and maybe 1 there, and maybe 1 there. So in this entire row, though, I've only got 1 that's a definite plant coming up, and then I have a few more that are trying. So we'll see. But you know, it ended up being pretty good. I ended up getting more peppers come up than I thought I would. So I'll take it. Of course, I may end up having more pepper plants than I have space, but I'm not going to complain. So my green stalks here up against the greenhouse are doing pretty good. Every day, because they are blocked by the greenhouse, I come here and I turn them so that there's kind of a rotation of light for the plants, but they're doing pretty good. I've got things coming up in every one of the cells, every one of the pockets, and I'll talk more about them in my next garden tour. All right, so I need to work on this bed right here. When I put this yellow squash in, the plants were itty bitty, you know, little seedlings, and I had put this piece of cattle panel scrap over the top to hold the shade cloth. Well, the plants are getting pretty big. I don't need this trellis here anymore, so I'm going to go ahead and pull this off because it's kind of getting in the way of the squash plants. As you can see, they're coming up through the top, and I don't want to hinder them, especially since I am tying these up these poles as they grow. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this. I just realized I was probably cutting my head off right there. As I was saying, I brought my tools down, my stuff that I needed in this basket. This was actually sent to me years ago by a subscriber. His name was Ken, and he lived in Alabama, and he did woodworking, and he sent me this as a gift. And he had an Etsy shop, and I had actually bought a cutting board from him made out of orange Osage orange wood, absolutely beautiful. You've probably seen it from time to time in some of my videos. It's kind of a smaller live edge cutting board, and the wood is orange. It's beautiful. If he still has an Etsy shop, I'll put a link to it in the video description down below. I don't know if he still does woodworking or if he still has an Etsy shop, but if he does, I'll find it for you and link it. I mentioned another close call, and this was actually something that took place back in, I think it was August. Those of you who are not brand new here will know the story. We have a miniature mule and miniature donkey, and I had a little bit of a mishap, and I took a direct kick to the head by our miniature mule. If you are new here and you did not hear the story, I'll put a link up here in a card or in the video description down below, and you can hear the story in all its glory. But I've had a couple of people recently asking how I recovered, if everything's all right, if I've had any lasting effects from the direct kick to the head by a mule. And so I figured I could share that with you guys, because that was a close call too. This one, being for me rather than the cat. So first of all, I know people will ask, no, I didn't go to the hospital. No, I never went to the doctor for it. I never got checked out. I felt like I was fine. Hindsight 2020, of course. I probably should have gone to the hospital and at least gotten checked out, because I don't know that I actually was fine. And I may have shared in a video, I kind of think that I have, that I suspect that I may have actually had a skull fracture. The kick to the head was right here. And, I examined myself, I was checking everything over, and I thought everything was fine. But I can tell you, now, several months later, I can feel right here is exactly where I was kicked. And there is a very definite indentation. And it kind of feels like it's an indentation in the skull. But I actually just had someone ask the other day if I've had any lasting effects from taking that. And actually, I think I sort of have. Yes, I have this definite ridge that I can feel in my skull. This area is actually still tender to the touch. Like when I touch it, it's very, very sensitive. But then also, and this may not be related, it may be completely unrelated, because I do get migraines from time to time. I have my entire adult life. But I have fairly recently started dealing with occasional bouts of ice pick migraines. And, like I had an episode of ice pick migraines several weeks ago, and it lasted for hours. It was pretty intense, and I've not had them that bad before. And I wondered if maybe that wasn't related to the kick to the head. But, at some point I may talk to the doctor about it. I may have them run some scans and just look to see what took place at that time, what happened. But again, there's not much that can be done about it. If there was a crack or something like that, then it's healing. And I just don't feel the need to worry about things if there's nothing that's in your control to do anything about it. Does that make sense? I'm not a worrier, in case you haven't figured that out already. All right, so I've got that piece of trellis that little cattle panel section off. And I did kind of bend a couple leaves in the process, but it'll be all right. So right now what I'm doing is I'm just checking the bottoms of the leaves, and I'm looking at the stems in the process as well, because squash bugs. I actually had someone ask me in my garden tour, my most recent one, how I deal with squash bugs. Well, squash bugs are inevitable. Okay, they're inevitable. If you're growing some sort of squash, you are probably going to have them show up at some point. It's just a matter of when, not if. And basically what I do is I just look for the telltale eggs. They like to lay them on the underside of the leaves, and they're pretty obvious when you see them. So I'm checking the bottom sides of all of my plants, looking under the leaves. And when you water your plants, like if you come out here with a water hose and you spray down the plants, squash bugs like to run up the stems because they don't like the water, so they're going to come up to get away from them. And so generally what I do is at the first sign of squash bugs, well, first of all, if I see eggs, I'm going to either take a piece of duct tape and pull them off, or I'm going to smash them with my fingers. One or the other. Or even maybe tear off that little piece of leaf. It's not going to kill your plant, and just crush it. If I see the squash bugs themselves, I'm going to come out here. I will begin keeping a jar of soapy water, just a little bit of Blue Dawn dish soap. And I pluck them off, I throw them in the jar. That's it. And if you see one, look for the other, because they're almost always in pairs. Where there's one, there's a partner. They've always got a partner in crime. And so that's basically all I do. Yes, you can spray for them. You can use all sorts of stuff, but honestly, I think dealing with the eggs as you see them and plucking off the adults as you see them. But if you do that, deal with the eggs, deal with the adults, then you should be able to extend your squash season as long as possible. So right now I'm just taking some pieces of twine and I'm growing the squash plants up these stakes and keeping the main stem off of the ground. Not only is it going to help me see squash bugs, but this is supposed to help at least slow down squash vine borers. I haven't had to deal with them very often, but once you get them, they're just going to destroy your plants. So I figure, why not do this? Because it makes it easier to see everything, and it looks nice. You can see down in here, bring it down a little further, we've got some squashes growing in there. And you can see right here, here's the main stem of this squash plant. This is what I am tying to the stake to help keep it up off of the ground, because squash plants will sprawl. They'll sprawl across the ground if you don't have them trellised or staked up or something like that. And some people will actually use tomato cages to grow these in, but I just find tomato cages to be a bit of a pain, to be honest. I think they make it hard to get into your plant. And so I find that stakes or cattle panel trellises, to me, are just the easiest route. You get lots of airflow, you have lots of visibility, and especially if you're coming in here and you're inspecting and you're looking for squash bugs. If this is inside a tomato cage, it's going to be really hard to inspect your plants. And I have got little baby squashes everywhere. It's wonderful. Wonderful. You know, look at all these baby squashes. Isn't that a beautiful sight? I mean, how many's on this plant? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I see 10 baby squashes just on this plant so far. That's pretty amazing. So the yellow squashes are done. So now I'm just going to kind of come over here and check my zucchini. There's a little baby zucchini right there. Now I did come through, and I mentioned this in my garden tour. I did come through here and I pulled off all of the first baby plants, or baby squashes, zucchini and yellow crookneck, because it encourages the plant to make more. And you know, it's kind of sad pulling off those very first ones, but it did not take long for more to start growing. Let's see here. Yep, there's some down in there. So all 4 of the zucchini plants have more zucchinis. Hello friends, so I am sitting here at my desk and I'm editing that video that you've been watching, and I realized this is a really long video. So I am going to save the 3rd portion of that story, the healing chapter that I mentioned at the beginning, and I'll just share that story in another video. So thanks for spending time with me here today. My name is Constance from Cosmopolitan Cornbread, and I'll talk to y'all next time.